I want to talk about Benjamin St. Juste. And I'm probably going to spend a little bit more time on this, and then we'll roll as quick as we can through the rest of it, and then we'll take your phone calls on a Tell the Truth Monday. But people are crushing Benjamin St. Juste today, and I think it's completely and utterly unfair because he did not have his best game. That is for sure. He did not play a perfect game. That is for sure. I don't even know that I would say he played a good game. I think he played an okay game. He was somewhat sticky in a lot of coverage situations. He got a couple of times. All of those times were he's playing man-to-man coverage in a ton of space, and Baltimore blocks a bunch of stuff up. He's got to cover for a long time. He's got to chase guys across the field with no help, but he gives up the right thing. Like, you can't cover everything. You can't play one-on-one in a full NFL field full of space against NFL wide receivers. Like, it's an impossible ask. And so when he's doing that stuff, he's able to stay close enough to make tackles. He's coming off of his guys and making physical tackles in other situations. He plays with a mentality and intent and a physicality that says, like, you can play for Dan Quinn, you can play for Adam Peters, and shoot, you can play for me any given day mentality-wise. The two biggest plays that he gives up are the pass interference penalties, and I don't think either of them are good calls. And I can't get on the radio and crush a guy for doing exactly what he's supposed to do. What is he like? He plays perfect coverage. I would say it's pretty perfect coverage. Maybe you could teach something. Maybe a referee would be like, no, you can't do that. But like, there's no grab on the one in the red zone. The play before Henry walks it in for the touchdown. Like, it is. He's on one hip. He comes around and swipes across. The ball is nowhere to be found near Zay Flowers. Flowers doesn't make any extraordinary attempt to get it. He just looks around and hopes that, the fact that St. Juste jumped around him can get a flag. But there's no real pull. There's no real tug. There's no sustained anything. It's a bad call. Straight up, it's a bad call. I understand why the ref made it, because that motion often comes with a hook, comes with a tug. But there wasn't one, and your job as a referee is to be right. And then on the second one, in the second half, like, the dude just falls down into BSJ's knees, and Benjamin puts his hands on him as he goes down so that the dude doesn't roll up and hyperextend into it, or roll into Benjamin's knee and hyperextend it. It's a human reaction to a dude who tripped over the ground and fell into your legs. That's not PI. And both of those are on third downs. It costs the Commanders double-digit points if they're just called correctly. And if those two are called correctly, a.k.a. no calls, none of y'all are mad at BSJ today. You're like, dang, he gave up a couple, but those are tough. Where's the pass rush? Why didn't he get home? Why is Benjamin St. Juste being asked to cover a guy like Zay Flowers? That is not his ideal matchup. The reality is, the problem is the corner who wasn't on the field yesterday. And I'm not going to sit here and crush Emmanuel Forbes because I'm not at practice. I don't know what's going on there. But, like, really, I would like, we can go back and crush Ron Rivera. I saw his name trending on Twitter today. I imagine this is why. You can't draft a dude to be your number one corner and have him a healthy scratch in year two. Roster building does not work that way. And people say, oh, they should have been more aggressive because Forbes wasn't good last season. Why did they think they could get something out of him? They should have signed Stephon Gilmore. Takes two to tango. I don't know that Gilmore wanted to play here. I think a lot of the number one type corners are older that were available, were older guys who wanted to go to contenders. And while the Commanders have turned into one, nobody thought they would be. And that seemed like a reasonable expectation in the offseason. Maybe if things go right, they'll be around 500. No, they're legit. And I'm sure some of those guys maybe wish they had signed here instead of wherever they wound up. But realistically, like, there wasn't a lot of options. You couldn't draft a number one corner in the draft because you used your number one overall pick on a quarterback, Jaden Daniels. That's turning out well. And when you have what you have right now with Washington, it is impossible not to have holes in your roster. And what I mean by that is when your last 1, 2, 3, 4 first-round picks are not contributing for you, you are going to be missing really important players at positions. And at edge, Chase Young and now Jamin Davis. Both guys, not helpful. There's two. Wide receiver, they could use a really good wide receiver too. Well, Jahan Dotson, they shipped him off to Philly because he wasn't it. And all he's done is go to Philly and do a whole lot of nothing. And then corner, if you had a good corner, you'd be in a completely different place defensively, but Forbes has been a bust. That's not on this group, and there's just a reality that we're going to have to deal with when it comes to this, that Benjamin St. Juste deserves credit and applause for being willing to go out there and compete his ass off, knowing, sure, he doesn't go to bed every night being like, well, I'm a number 2 corner. Like, he's out there trying. It's not his fault. And he really didn't play that poorly yesterday. A lot of bad results happened. With him involved, but I'm not blaming him for bad calls, and I'm not blaming him for pass rush not getting home and blitzes not getting home. And if he had then missed tackles on some of those crossers, okay, fine. He didn't. He made the play the best he could, and I understand the frustration. I would direct that frustration at Ron Rivera every time he shows up on your television, at Emmanuel Forbes if you really want to. If you want to, at Adam Peters, although I don't think that he really could have done anything. And whatever's left, if you want to direct it at St. Juste, fine. But I don't think it's BSJ's fault. That's my Benjamin St. Juste rant. Because I hate... It's also the inhumane vitriol and some of the things that people say that's just completely... If you don't like him as a football player, fine. Be like, dang, I'm tired of watching him. Okay, fine. Do that. Some of the language that gets used online, especially about a guy where it's not his fault, that bothers me on a human level, and it's unnecessary. All right.
Number 5.
The rest of the secondary, there were more busts in this game than we've seen probably the previous 3 combined. They had a couple of miscommunications. I think a huge part of that is there was a ton of space on the second level because Baltimore's play-action game is so good. Suck the linebackers up. There's a ton of space. Guys are confused as to where they need to be. There was miscommunication in the red zone on the touchdown to Andrews. It was either Butler needs to cover over, Bobby Wagner needs to cover the seam, or Quan Martin needs to not get distracted by the corner route. Depends on what the call was. I put this one up on Twitter at Craig Hoffman if you want to go take a look in more detail. But all in all, Baltimore puts your offense or your defense in a ton of conflict, and they did a really good job of that. And as a result, Washington had more issues with some free runners and guys in space and things like that than they have in probably the previous 3 weeks combined. And I would say that's ultimately fine moving forward because they're not going to face an offense as good as Baltimore's for a while. Big news of the day today.
Number 6.
John Allen. I am so bummed for John. If you're just tuning in, breaking news about an hour ago, it was reported and then confirmed by the team moments later that John Allen is out for the season with a torn pectoral muscle. He's starting to jump off the tape a lot more the last 2 weeks specifically. He's starting to make a ton of plays. He's starting to shed blocks violently. He's starting to get in the backfield. He's chasing things down. He looked like a lot closer to Pro Bowl John Allen the last couple of weeks. And I know some of the productivity wasn't there as much. In this game, he's got a couple of tackles before he exited. He probably had a 5-6 tackle game with the pace he was on. But he's starting to get sacks, tackles for loss, all that stuff. They're going to miss him. I think the good news is Johnny Newton has played well and is probably ready for a little bit more. But John's institutional knowledge and know-how, nevertheless, the leadership and the other things he provides, it's definitely going to be missed. And I feel just absolutely terrible for John.
Number 7.
Got to point it out, though. I hate this, but John might have just played his last snap as a Commander. We'll explore that a little bit later on in the show because we're way behind on time. But with the way the contract is, it's very easy to move on. And I think you can make a really good argument to spend that money somewhere else. So what they do with him moving forward is going to be fascinating. We'll detail that a little bit later in the show.
Number 8.
Cliff Kingsbury. Players, not plays. Something that I love about Cliff is in mega situations, he's like, all right, who do I want to get the ball to and how do I want to get him the ball? And his ability to scheme up goes and comebacks, throws that Jaden likes in situations where Romo on the broadcast is like, oh, that's going to be a slant. And instead, it's a hitch. Why? Because Jaden likes throwing hitches, not slants, or hitches more than slants. His ability to get Terry isolated or Terry in a good route concept and make him the primary. It's something that for years I have just been mystified at offensive coordinators here not being able to do. Oh, it's this down and distance. We like this concept. Okay, well, make it so the guy that's good is going to be open. If you like the concept so much, enhance it by putting the right guys in the right spots. Cliff does that, especially in key situations, and I think that is going to continue to bode well for this team moving forward.
Number 9.
I thought the situational football was pretty good yesterday. I know that there's some consternation about not going fast enough on that final drive that they had offensively. Look, I get it. A little bit faster would have been nice. The problem was getting the stop on defense. They scored with enough time that if they get a stop, they would get the ball back and they'd have enough time for a drive. The problem wasn't the time. The problem was the stop. And at the end of the first half, they managed that as well as you possibly could. They had, one timeout, not a whole lot to work with, needed to get some yardage. They do, and then Seibert, I don't know whether he missed or whether it got deflected. I don't know what the ultimate ruling on that was. But offensively, they did their job.
Number 10.
And then last but not least, Austin Seibert hit a couple long field goals yesterday, and he has been very spotty in his career above 50 yards, even frankly above 40 yards. So the fact that he can make those changes things moving forward for this team. And Dan Quinn, talking in the press conference today, said he wanted to prove to Austin, hey man, I got faith in you, especially after you missed that first one. And that is a big, big deal. I think they'd still like to keep him kicking mostly under 40 where he's perfect in his career. But if that opens up some possibilities, even though they are now 9 for 9 on fourth down on the year, it does allow for a little bit different play calling, a little bit different situational management if you can trust Seibert above 50 yards.
This is the Hoffman Show on the Team 980 and the Odyssey app.